I get it now. This isn't about football at all. This is about recruiting, and this is why Lane Kiffin is doing this.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Today on the show, we talk about the Grove Bowl games and Lane Kiffin's gambit to make the end of a spring event not about football at all. We talk about recruiting and what the game is actually about. Nate Kalepo, the offensive line transfer, met the media post-practice today, and I came away feeling better about left guard, and Ayden Williams is extremely high on how good Yam Banks could be. Also, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State Saturday is sold slap out. This is the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first and listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Also, a special thanks go out to the Grove Collective for making the Juice Wells interview happen. Go to thegrovecollective.com and join today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so yesterday we talked a little bit about the game from the football perspective, the Grove Collective perspective, and I had thoughts on that all the way through. And then as this went on, and we kept getting information and news about what the Grove Bowl games are going to be, you start to realize this isn't about football at all. This isn't about a football game at all. They're going to get out there and they're going to run around and they're going to compete and they're going to do that, but it's not about football. So going for the actual competition, it doesn't actually work. What this is about, in my opinion, is about recruiting. You have a situation where the main people invited to participate and attend were people in the college and people that these players would be going to school with. You're going to have field day type environments to where recruits can look exactly at all of the fun that is being had by the Ole Miss football players. It doesn't matter in this gambit and this little way that Lane Kiffin is designing this about honestly the Grove Collective version of fans at all. You're not a situation to where you're not going out there to see the progress of a left tackle. You're not going to look at Diego Pounds. You're not going to look at Ayden Williams and seeing how he recovered. You're not going to see Nate Kalepo. You're not going to see Kedrick Risano running inside zone plays. Jaxson Dart finding out how healthy this young man is. You're not going to get all of those answers that everybody obviously wants. But what is going to happen in this game is that recruits are going to make this a major league visit weekend. I'm expecting, I haven't seen names yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be pretty interesting, and it should go up considerably since Lane Kiffin admitted that Joey Chestnut is going to be there doing a hot dog eating contest. Whenever that happened, I realized at that point, this isn't about football. This isn't about anything like that. This is completely about making a field day type environment for a recruiting weekend. And that way, this is going to work because you're going to be able to promote your team having a ton of fun in a no pressure environment without really anybody judging from down below. And the recruits are going to see that and gravitate that way. I'm really interested to see who shows up. I'm assuming Akylin Dear will be on campus that weekend. I'm assuming that the linebacker out of Louisiana is going to be there. The linebacker out of Alabama is going to be there. The main commits are already going to be set up on this class. But somebody like Mario Nash, trying to get him on campus that day. Somebody like Caleb Cunningham, trying to get him on campus that day so we could see the players running around and having a really good time. I talked all the time. You can go back in 2 years and see my opinion on this. One of the main avenues of attraction for Lane Kiffin's programs are fun. He is going to basically for lack of a better terms, virtue signal fun to other people that might be watching. You got the fire extinguisher on the sideline. You've got all of this stuff that would drive people absolutely wild going. All of this fun environment is one of the reasons the transfer portal works. It's also one of the reasons our Grove Collective works for less than what Texas's Grove Collective works at, or whatever they call that one, the Longhorn Victory Fund or whatever that's called. The reason is he promotes fun. So essentially, since Ole Miss is viewed as a fun place to go, all of a sudden, instead of $500,000, it might be $300,000. And you can bank that little bit of extra money. You get a little bit of a discount because it looks enjoyable. Now, Lane Kiffin met the media today and he talked about how they haven't tackled this spring. Contact's been at a minimum. This whole spring has been an experimentation. The spring game is an experimentation. If they haven't honestly tackled through spring and they just haven't done contact all spring, that means that they were never going to have a true scrimmage Grove Bowl, because you do want to have a basis for tackling and players being used to having contact and things like that before you start tackling. I get that entirely. I get the reasoning for why they're doing this. I just don't know if I agree with it, just like I said yesterday. But I can see why it's happening. Like I said, the recruiting angle of this is something that can't be ignored. And with Ole Miss going into a year to where the whole recruiting cycle moved up by about 3 or 4 weeks, the signing day, the early signing day, is going to be sometime around December 2nd this season, December 3rd, something like that, instead of December 21st or whatever it was. So it's about 3 weeks it's been moved up. And because of that, official visits are going to get early as well. You don't have those December weeks to go take official visits. So this is a pseudo official visit if you can get people on campus for it. I imagine that Ole Miss is selling this pretty hard. Lane Kiffin is selling this pretty hard, especially bringing somebody like Joey Chestnut in. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of competitive eating. I do not like watching people eat. So competitive eating, it gets to me a little bit. But other people enjoyed that. And Joey Chestnut is a name. I've heard his name. I've never watched him eat once. But I've heard his name. I know he does. I know that he is a superstar on the competitive eating circuit. But that is going to be something that might bring recruits to Ole Miss's campus. Honestly, it might bring, like, I think I was on our Discord and Birmingham Reb was talking about how he was likely coming to the campus for this because of Joey Chestnut. If you look at this, the Grove Bowl in the 2024 is going to 7-on-7, which that is the probably most dangerous part about this because of all the side-to-side movement about it. There is a chance you could pop an ACL in the 7-on-7 games. Fan involvement, I do not know what that means. An obstacle course, okay. A dunk contest, okay. And a hot dog eating contest with Joey Chestnut. And I'm assuming that means Joey Chestnut's going to be there watching it, not participating, because he hadn't trained or anything for this. So you can see this. If you look at this information, once you see it written out, this is about recruiting. I don't know who they're trying to get their attention when they come on campus. Who is the recruit that they're bringing in to handle all of this? But the 7-on-7 games, I guess we will get to see Austin Simmons throw. I do want to see Tre Harris versus Trey Amos. If they're not on separate teams going against each other, Ole Miss kind of failed this weekend for people that are interested in football-related things. And if nothing else, the football can become a one-on-one level open practice in these 7-on-7 games. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Like I said, I do think that the worthwhile thing for this is about recruiting. And it makes sense that something like this is happening. The longer I think of it, is Lane Kiffin, everything he does is about recruiting. Everybody's going to say outside the box and something like that. No, it's probably from an idea. His idea was we're going to have a light contact spring so that our team doesn't transfer away in May. You know, we talk all the time about how Ole Miss being a fun place to go is the reason Ole Miss is kind of protected from the transfer portal if players just aren't playing. And so that just reached its logical conclusion a little bit with the Pro Bowl games. Now, I do still think what I thought yesterday. And I think that members of the Grove Collective genuinely deserve to see what they're paying for. But like I said, I understand what is going on. And I'm going to speak up for the fans every chance I get, because the fans, if you let people go unchallenged, for instance, don't say anything, let it go, just kind of go with the flow, all of a sudden you can take it from here and it ends up way over there and it's completely unrecognizable and you had no input whatsoever. So yeah, I'm going to speak up whenever I'm upset, but I can see why this is going on. This is going to be a major recruiting coup. I think that's the important thing that everybody needs to remember is the recruiting angle of all of this. Whenever you're watching this on Saturday, it's a recruiting thing. You get people in the stadium. If people go to the Grove Bowl games and all of a sudden they're having fun, all the recruits can see that. This is 100% about recruiting. Don't give me injuries. Don't give me transfer portal. Don't give me any of that stuff. When you sit back and see what's going on, this is about projecting an image to outside people, which would be recruits. That's my opinion on that. So whenever that happens, I'm a little bit better minded of what's going on. But like I said, I still have the same problems that I had yesterday with it. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. We talk about the anchor of the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line at Washington and why he'll be doing his magic at Ole Miss this fall. You know, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to go for every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. One of the things you can bet on is Ole Miss and their odds to make the playoff in 2024. Currently, the yes payout for that is at minus 122, which is about 54% probability of happening. I thought that was pretty interesting, but that's not all. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every single day with the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right. So we talked in the first segment about why this is being done in the Grove Bowl games and what this is really happening. And that's all about exterior projection of an image, and it's fun and it's designed for recruits to bring people in. This is all part of Lane Kiffin's desire to build Ole Miss up that way. You can't go into this looking for football. If you go in this looking for football, you're going to be disappointed. But that recruiting angle, if it goes well, this could all be worth it in the end. Now, Nate Kalepo from Washington, the Washington Huskies, the Joe Moore award-winning Washington Huskies offensive line, he transferred to Ole Miss back in January, and Kalepo got the write-up from Joe Moore whenever they announced the winner. He's like the anchor of that unit. And he's a guy that whenever you hear him talk, and I got to listen to him a little bit yesterday, he just kind of oozes charisma. He's a guy that you can see that he could be a leader of that group of 5 that's on the field. Nate Kalepo could absolutely be the guy that handles everything, kind of being the leader of that offensive line group, whether he's playing next to Diego Pounds or Caleb Warren on the right, going over to right guard, maybe Jeremy James or Julius Buelow, or at right tackle, you have Micah Pettus. You have a situation, Ayden Williams, well, this offensive line is probably 10 deep going into this football season. Unbelievably huge amount. And this is where you could see another positive. You know, we always talk about the transfer portal and the fear and the worries about the transfer portal. Not having a true depth chart going in through spring practice and then lining up and playing a game in the Grove Bowl, it could be a situation to where Jeremy James or Julius Buelow or Eli Acker, any of those 3 that all have a chance for a good bit of playing time, could see one of them has to be 3rd on the depth chart. If you have Jeremy James starting at right guard on the red team and you have Julius Buelow starting at right guard on the blue team, all of a sudden you look there and it's like Eli Acker's like, well, I'm kind of playing backup. Maybe I should go down to Southern Miss and play a little bit of football. So that, like I said, I can see why they're doing what they're doing. I just don't necessarily like it. But when you look at Nate Kalepo lining up potentially next to Diego Pounds or Ayden Williams, whoever's lined up on left tackle, right now I think it would probably be Diego Pounds. He's a large individual. Nate Kalepo, by the way, said that if any player was going to win the hot dog eating contest, it was probably going to be Diego Pounds. And apparently he is a very, very large human being. But Kalepo lining up at that left guard and kind of being the leader of that unit. Caleb Warren has all kinds of experience. We need to make sure the snaps are in better shape. And we've seen multiple years, and 2022 was really bad. 2023, it was a little bit better, but not great. But in 2022, when Caleb Warren went out, Ole Miss had a problem snapping the football. All of the timing was messed up. You couldn't even run jet sweep. Snapping the football is of the utmost importance in this offense, timing based. Okay. Caleb Warren, when he's healthy, absolutely can handle what needs to be done. Bryson Sanders, I think, has a chance to be the backup center this year. But this not being a Grove Bowl that we can see, we can't necessarily see who the backup center is and how he snaps the football. Nate Kalepo kind of leading that unit, kind of being the person that eases through the scenarios whenever you're, basically zone blocking left and zone blocking right and pass protection by slide. You have a situation to where Ole Miss could be very, very easy to go. Their offensive line can do some weird stuff to where both of the sides go that way and they just open up the middle. So that's the reason that teams every now and then, they just say, screw it and start double A gap blitzing. And that means on either side of the center shoulder, because the offensive line is going to go that way and they're basically going to have a free rusher. And you saw that against Tulane. And I always call it on the show, and you can hear what I'm saying. I call it the Engage 8. So if you ever hear me talking about that, it's just everybody coming, and it's just banking on one of the plays where Ole Miss's protection, the offensive line splits out, and you can break it apart with those double A gap blitzes. Jaxson Dart's a super tough human being. I talked to a parent of a player that is currently on the team that was sitting here talking about, is like, this is the toughest guy ever. He just is. He has all the respect of all the players in the locker room because of how tough he is. Now, you do wonder from time to time if he's tough to a detriment at times. And I understand that he's kind of towing that line. But the parent was like extremely high on what was going on of him toughness. And his kid was like, hey, that's all he does is talk about Jaxson and stuff like that. Really, really good football player. Now, we need to make sure that growth happens from year 2 to year 3. We're interested to see what a year 3 Lane Kiffin quarterback looks like. I don't even know if we've seen something like that. So I'm excited. And you're going to have Nate Kalepo. And if Julius Buelow ends up at the right guard position, which I don't think he will, I think Jeremy James might end up being the dude that wins that job, just off of a gut feeling. But if it's Buelow, all of a sudden you have 2/5 of the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line starting on your offensive line. Nearly half of that offensive line is starting on your offensive line, which tells me it should get better. At left tackle, Ayden Williams, he's a good player. He's gotten some time, and he played a lot of football last year. Ole Miss brought in Diego Pounds, kind of recruited over him. Nate Kalepo obviously replacing like a couple of players on the left side, like Victor Kern left and somebody else graduated as well. Forget his name right now. Apologize about that. But when you look at this offensive line straight through, you can see the direction that they've went in. Nate Kalepo might be the most valuable transfer that Ole Miss got this season. That includes Walter Nolen. That includes Princely Amamielin. That includes Juice Wells. That includes Daquan Wright. That includes Pooh Paul. Nate Kalepo, who is going up against Walter Nolen and JJ Pegues every single day in practice. That is a major, important position for Ole Miss football. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ayden Williams is high on Yam Banks at DB. And this Saturday MSU game, it's sold out. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which helps getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'm going to the Detroit Tigers Tampa Bay Rays Major League Baseball game in a couple of weeks in Tropicana Field down in St. Petersburg, and I use Game Time because of some of the unique features that they have on the app. For instance, they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. If it's in the same section and row, they will credit you 110% of the difference. They have ticket coverage, like they cover it in case you lose your job or things like that. You can just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. And also, the one reason that I was majorly involved with this is you can check your views from the seat to see exactly what that looked like, because I wanted to see that sweet left-handed swing at a Major League Baseball game. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover each and every league. Find Locked On Sports Today available on the free Fire TV channels app. Be part of history. Ayden Williams went up and met the media after practice yesterday as well. And Ayden Williams, for those that don't know, is a sophomore wide receiver out of Ridgeland, Mississippi. It turns out he had off-season surgery, by the way. He's just getting back to doing team drills. That kind of lets you know the position that they are in at the moment, because they don't have Juice Wells, who we talked to Juice, and he said he was shut down for the entire spring. Deion Smith obviously has not made it yet. Tre Harris is here. We've seen those highlights all the freaking time. But that lets you know where this offensive unit is currently at. Noreel White also is getting a bunch of reps as well. Ayden Williams is a good wide receiver, and he's better than any wide receiver that came out of the last Mississippi recruiting class. 2 years ago, Ayden Williams was the dude. So I'm not expecting anything other than Ayden Williams to be the dude going forward. Now, the problem that Ayden has is he's in a wide receiver room with Tre Harris, with Jordan Watkins, with Juice Wells, with Deion Smith, with those guys. And that's going to make it difficult to get on the field to play for Ole Miss. Now, he did say that he is very impressed with Yam Banks. Now, full disclosure, Yam Banks is from Ridgeland as well, and they actually played high school football when Ayden Williams was a freshman. But Yam Banks was described as a dog. Now, is Yam Banks going to be a safety? Is he going to be a slot corner? I mean, you have players like Jaden Kennedy from the Tulane transfer from a year ago that's kind of getting right. You have Key Lawrence. You have Lewis Moore. You have a lot of talent for the back end of the middle of that defense. So we'll see. This was going to be a situation on Saturday where you wanted to see what they look like, and you will be able to check those guys out in coverage in the weekend. So in those 7-on-7 games, check out Key Lawrence, check out Lewis Moore, check out Yam Banks, check out Trey Washington, Jaden Kennedy. Those players in the middle of the defense have a chance to be fairly high up good players because kind of coverage is coverage. I know. That's some deep stuff right there. All right, let's change subjects a little bit before we get out of here today. Saturday's game with Mississippi State is sold out for Ole Miss baseball. Ole Miss baseball has lost, was it 7 games in a row, 8 games in a row, something like that. The record is not particularly good. They honestly need a sweep against the Mississippi State Bulldogs this weekend. Winning 2 doesn't really help them. They need to pick up some games. And if you win all 3, you obviously pick up 3 games, where if you win 2, you pick up 1 game. So the sweep is necessary a little bit for the Ole Miss Rebels. The problem is Ole Miss has not even defeated Mississippi State in a home series in Oxford since like 2015. That is a very, very long time. And it's one of those situations where you kind of just, okay, we'll see what happens. So we'll check that out. Now, Ole Miss baseball played a lot better against Arkansas. They just ran out against a team that was better, for lack of a better word. Kentucky swept them, made Ole Miss baseball look bad in the process. Kentucky's like 11-1 right now in the SEC as well. So Ole Miss 3-9, LSU's 3-9, by the way. It was like, if you're looking at Madden cover jinxes, maybe winning the national title in college baseball is a Madden covered type jinx, because you had Mississippi State went through it for a couple of years. You still have Ole Miss kind of in the weeds a little bit, and LSU is dealing with it right now. We'll see what happens. So today's show, we talked about the Grow Bowl games and what the actual meaning is for the Grow Bowl games, and that meaning is recruiting. This is all about the projection of fun. This isn't about anything football related other than, hey, this group of people, it's a fun group of people to be a part of. Come check these out. So we'll see who is on the recruiting list for Ole Miss going into Saturday. And we talked about Nate Kalepo and how that Joe Moore award-winning offensive line member coming to Ole Miss to do his magic. That's a big deal. Ayden Williams really likes Yam Banks, and Ole Miss is sold out their Saturday game against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. We have the most perspective surrounding spring practice and football in general, and it is one of the many reasons we are the #1 Ole Miss podcast, and thank you for that. But for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover each and every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. For those of you on YouTube, though, we'll send you there right now. Anyway, hotty toddy, everyone.